The image is not flattering, is it, of Keir Starmer flanked by two henchmen, armed not with swords but with calculators and cups of tea, delivering what he believes is a masterclass in tax reform. This tableau sums up the government's approach to the inheritance tax raid on farms, a policy that has sparked rage from the countryside to the capital. And let me address the human and historical context first. Farmers feel a profound sense of futility and loss. The urban cackle of class opprobrium, accompanied by a chorus, "We're all in it together," is deafening. But while farmers may indeed be in it, they are in it, up to their necks in it, drowning in it. The ordure of conceit. The result of this tax will not be fairness, as the government insists, but the evisceration of British farming itself. This isn't a debate about the wealth of a few land-rich families, but the survival of an industry that has fed this nation for centuries. Think back to the land army of World War II and the rallying cry of "Grow for victory." With our farms hollowed out, self-sufficiency will be little more than a pipe dream and a carrot, if we can get it. Starmer's assurances that most farms won't be affected ring hollow when juxtaposed against the lived reality of those on the land. Farmers see the government's analysis as a patronising numbers game. The Treasury estimates that fewer than 500 farms per year will face inheritance tax. Meanwhile, the Country Land and Business Association predicts that up to 70,000 farms will suffer over a generation. And as Victoria Vivian, president of the CLA, quipped, relying on BBC Verify, a pair of blokes with a cup of tea and a calculator is hardly a beacon of credibility. When the farming industry produces a return on capital of just 0.5% and average profits hover around £45,000 a year, even modest tax liabilities will devastate families. At the heart of this row lies a fundamental misunderstanding of agriculture. Agricultural property relief, APR, and business property relief are not loopholes but lifelines for multi-generational farms. Yes, in the past, people could have planned ahead and given their farms to their families 7 years before they die, but there is no time to plan ahead now. This is a knee-jerk imposition. These reliefs acknowledge the APR, the BPR, acknowledge that farming profits are reinvested into production, that you dig it back into the land, not stashed away offshore. By threatening these safeguards, the government has stabbed farmers in the back and betrayed an industry that forms the backbone of rural Britain. And the protests in Westminster this week showcase the depth of this anger and the absurdity of this, where it now divides into a left-right confrontation, with the left poking their fingers in urban contempt at the farmers and the right coming out to support the farmer. This isn't a left-right confrontation. This is about the difference between a rural economy and an urban elite. Over 10,000 farmers descended on London, 20,000 farmers descended on London, some in tractors, brandishing placards reading "No farmers, no food, no future." Even Jeremy Clarkson joined the fray, describing the tax as a knee in the nuts for farmers. Amid the protests, the National Farmers Union urged MPs to reconsider, warning that the policy risks hollowing out the UK's food security. The NFU president, Tom Bradshaw, described the policy as not only economically reckless, but morally unacceptable, especially for older farmers who've already sacrificed so much. The government's defence that this policy will curb the practice of wealthy investors buying farmland as a tax haven. Well, then why not approach them? Why not target them? Labour's own analysis shows a 56% increase in non-farmer purchases of agricultural land since 2010. Great, I agree. Focus on them. But instead, this catch-all leaves farmers scrabbling for survival. And the argument feels like a sleight of hand, punishing genuine farmers for the sins of speculators. The consequence of this policy goes beyond economics. There's a deep psychological toll on farming families, older families, already battered by financial uncertainty, already battered by Brexit. And it's not true that all farmers voted for Brexit, but they all face the prospect of being unable to pass their farms on to their children, of being uncertain about whether the farms can remain together or whether land will have to be sold. And if land is sold, it will never be recovered. This is a betrayal of generational trust and legacy. And so we end where we begin, with Sir Keir and his henchmen. And this imagery epitomizes Labour's detachment from rural Britain, reducing a complex and vital industry to a balance sheet. Farmers don't need calculators or condescension, they need respect and support. Because without them, this country faces a bleak future, where grow for victory is replaced by import for survival. The farmers kept us alive during the Second World War. We owe them a debt.